I wanted to make this video for a while because I know how important going freelance was for me. It absolutely changed my life, and it could change yours too. And so because of that, I've bounced a lot of versions of this around in my head, felt the pressure to make the perfect video. But I think the reality is that I just need to share this because I think it'll be valuable to somebody, even in an imperfect form. Welcome back to the show. I'm Travis Ferentz, a Grammy-nominated recording engineer and mixer, and today we're talking about why I've quit every gig I've ever had. So I spent almost 6 years as a staff engineer at Capitol Studios in Hollywood, an absolute legendary classic recording studio, and I also worked on staff for several independent producers. And don't get me wrong, all these gigs are dream gigs for anybody, including me, and I did love them. But my goal was always to be a freelance engineer and mixer, which I've now been fortunate enough to do for the last 6 years. So if that's your goal as well, stick with me because we're going to talk about why I quit these gigs and how to know if you're also ready to make that jump to being a freelance engineer or producer. But before we get into all this quitting, right, let's briefly talk about why a staff engineer gig is such an amazing launching point for a career. So when you're a staff engineer, you start at the bottom. You are essentially assigned mentors because you get to work alongside people that have done this for years, if not decades. And a great studio is great because of the staff. And those veterans know that. So they are always ready to pass down their knowledge to you, which is amazing. And you're not just going to learn from the staff. A studio is a rotating door of people. You get the chance to work with so many different artists, engineers, producers. You'll get to see different styles of production, different miking techniques, different workflows. You'll probably work on everything from rock to pop, film scores to TV commercials. You'll see film shoots, live in-studio performances. I could go on forever. Obviously, you name it, it's probably going to happen if you work in one of these big rooms. The wide range of things that you'll be exposed to will help you learn what you like and what you don't like. And the more things you experience, the more options you might see for your future, right? You may have started in this business thinking you wanted to record rock bands, and then one day work on a film score and realize that that's actually what you want to pursue. Now, that same wide range of experiences that's helping you figure out what you want to do, it's also shaping your sonic tastes. You'll pluck different tricks from different sessions and different people, and over time, you'll start to build that palette that is your sonic preferences and that will give you your own unique style. And finally, that same rotating cast of characters I mentioned earlier, they will become your client base because it's important even as a staffer to think of the people you work with as your clients. Having people remember that they enjoyed working with you and to request to work with you again is one of the first indications you'll get that you're doing something right, something that could carry over to a freelance career. So by now, you're probably asking yourself, if being a staff engineer is so great, why would you quit? Well, earlier, I said that I had quit working at Capitol Studios, which was a little bit of a lie because I actually quit twice. And so I started my career there as a runner, the classic entry-level position, right? And after a few years, I realized that because it was such a great gig, there was not a lot of movement. People were not leaving anytime soon, and I wasn't going to wish death upon any of my buddies. So when an opportunity to go work for an independent producer came up, I took it. Now, I was grossly underqualified for the job at the time, but I was good enough to get by, and I think the guy saw an opportunity to shape a young engineer to do things the way that he wanted them done. So we did a lot of music for film and TV, a few big Disney projects, and a whole slew of songwriting sessions, all mostly pop. And I was constantly given new responsibilities. And if I handled those well, then he would just give me more. And so it got to the point where I was recording, editing, and mixing every project we did, unless the label wanted a fancy name mixer. And it was great. I loved all of it. It was amazing until I started to feel unchallenged. We had such a routine in the way that we worked that every day started to feel the same. Every EQ move started to feel the same. The guitar sounds were the same. The vocal chain was the same. Everything was the same. And when I felt like I was starting to just go through the motions, I started to think that maybe it was time for a change because careers are about growth. And growth comes from being challenged. I'm a big believer that when you stop learning and you stop being challenged, you start to get frustrated. And you may not identify exactly why you're feeling that way, but it's because you're not growing. And this is why I left Capitol the first time. I saw more potential for growth by leaving, so I did. And when I felt that growth start to slow down, I started looking for other opportunities. So if you're feeling this in your career right now, I encourage you to look for a way to grow. Maybe that growth is from moving on to be freelance, or maybe it's not quite time yet because it is a big jump. And in my case, it was not quite time. It was instead time to go back to Capitol. So I leveraged my years of pop vocal recording and mixing to get rehired, but this time as a staff engineer. So they were expanding the facility to have a few rooms dedicated to vocals and overdubs, and hence we're hiring more people. So it was perfect. It gave me the growth and challenge I was looking for, and it put me back in the mix of different experiences and different people. But over those next 6 years, I'd find that there was something else that was missing that would eventually drive me to quit again. I think it's safe to say that what drew most of us into music to begin with was the ability to express ourselves. For me, it was playing what I thought was cool on guitar in my bedroom all night. Just turns out that I was a horrible guitar player. But in the studio, I can still have that creative expression, especially when I'm mixing. And that's what I lost when I returned to Capitol. I was engineering great sessions, but I wasn't mixing. And most of the engineering I was doing was the same one mic, one player overdub engineering that I had been doing before. Now, I was for sure being challenged. The stakes were often higher. The artists were usually bigger. But because of that, I didn't have the freedom to always do what I wanted, nor did I have the freedom to choose the projects I wanted to do or to work the way I wanted. And these things didn't bother me at first. I knew the gig I was taking when I took it, and I loved it. But as I grew more and I got better at my craft, I started to crave that choice. I wanted to develop my own sound and build my own credit list with the artists that I wanted to work with. Things that every engineer wants to do, right? But they're also things that are generally out of your control if you're on staff somewhere. So if you feel like you've grown your skills to the point that you want to be making records your way with the people you love working with, then you're right where I was at this point. And I think this is one of the biggest telltale signs that you might be ready to be freelance. Because this feeling of not having the freedom to do what you want, it's rooted in the fact that you've developed your musical identity to the point that you have to live it. And it's that kind of confidence that you need to be a freelancer. So what did I do? I quit Capitol again, but yet again, it was not to go freelance, which looking back on was a mistake. I should have made the plunge, but I had to do one more gig and learn one more lesson. So like a broken record, I left Capitol to work for a producer. I was hired to run his label studios, which on paper was an amazing gig, but in reality, it was not what I wanted to do at all. And so I ended up doing this little side quest for like 6 or 8 months before finally realizing it was time to be working for myself. Because despite the fact that I was running 2 rooms and managing small staff, I somehow still felt unchallenged in this gig. And even though I was in charge of the studios, I still felt a lack of freedom. And this is when I realized that the true core of my frustrations, the thing that had been festering behind the scenes, is that I'd lost sight of my goals. That first time I quit Capitol was the only time I was working towards the goal I mentioned in the beginning of being a freelance engineer and mixer. All the other choices I made after that were based on chasing credits or making money. I was trying to gig hop into bigger records and waiting for those credits to miraculously get me mix work, even though they were engineering credits. I'd mixed for years on the side, but when you're on staff, you only have so much free time. And yes, I was making a living working in music, but I was not working towards the things I wanted to work towards. And that realization that I had been out of alignment with my goal for so many years was the final catalyst in going freelance. So if you're still watching and you feel these things, you feel that you are unchallenged and not growing, and that you don't have the freedom to be who you want to be artistically, and that what you're doing is not in alignment with your goals, then I encourage you to change that. And it might be that going freelance could be the answer you're looking for. And if it is, and the thing that's holding you back is not knowing what to charge, then check out this video I did about how to set your rates.